The laughter started before she even reached the table. At the Ivy Pearl, a restaurant where glass chandeliers shimmered like rain and every napkin was folded with military precision, Ella Moreno stood frozen in the doorway. The broken heel of her shoe dangled uselessly. Her cream dress was splattered with coffee, and the tote bag she clutched to her chest dripped with rainwater. A waiter carrying a tray stopped mid-step. Someone at the bar whispered, "Oh my God, she's soaked." Then came the soft, poisonous sound of laughter. The pianist faltered over a note. Ella's cheeks burned, but she didn't retreat. She bent down, slipped off both shoes, and straightened her back. "Excuse me," she murmured to the hostess. "Table 7. The hostess hesitated, eyes flicking to the reservation list. "Blind date for Ella, that's me." Every step across the marble floor left a faint, wet footprint. At the corner table, a man in a charcoal suit looked up from his phone. Clean lines, dark hair, a watch that could pay her rent for 6 months. His gaze held her like a mirror she couldn't look away from. "I'm sorry," Ella said quietly, setting her tote down beside the chair. "This isn't how I usually look." Lucas Davenport, though she only knew him then as Luke Daniels, raised one brow. "Rough day, you could say that." A bus broke down, a storm decided to join me, and a stranger's latte declared war on my dress. The corner of his mouth moved, almost a smile. "And you still came." "I promised my friend I'd try," she replied, forcing a breathless laugh. "I didn't think the universe would test me on it." For a moment the tension cracked. The waiter brought water and discreetly placed extra napkins on the table. Ella dabbed at the stain, aware of every glance from nearby diners. "I can leave if this is too embarrassing," she offered. Lucas shook his head. "No, sit. If we're already a disaster, might as well see it through." She sat. Her hands trembled slightly, but her voice stayed steady. "So Luke, what do you do when you're not rescuing strangers from social humiliation?" He studied her, as if weighing how much truth to reveal. "Consulting," he said finally. "Mostly strategy. Numbers, buildings, people who like to build bigger things. That sounds vague enough to be mysterious or illegal." "Neither," he said with a hint of amusement. "Just complicated." She smiled, the first real one of the evening. "Good. I'm allergic to perfect." Outside, thunder rolled again, faint and distant. The light from the chandelier softened, catching the streak of coffee on her sleeve. Lucas noticed but didn't comment. Instead, he asked, "And you, what kind of chaos do you create for a living?" "I'm a designer. Interiors mostly. I make small spaces feel like they matter." "Like this one?" She glanced around at the marble, the orchids, the crystal glasses. "No, places like this don't need me. I work with hospitals, shelters. Somewhere a soft chair might mean more than a chandelier." That made him pause. "That's different. Different doesn't pay rent, but it keeps me human." He looked at her longer than politeness allowed. Something about the way she said it without apology stirred a quiet admiration he hadn't expected to feel at all. Across the room, a flash went off. Someone had snapped a photo, quick and careless. Ella caught the reflection in the window and winced. "Great. That's going to live forever somewhere." Lucas's jaw tightened. "People can be cruel. They can," she agreed softly. "But sometimes they're just bored." The waiter returned with 2 plates, the chef's suggestion sent complimentary for courage. Ella laughed under her breath. "See, even strangers can sense when your dignity's collapsing." "Or rebuilding," Lucas said. She looked up. "You think so?" "You walked in here barefoot," he said simply. "Most people would have turned around." Ella considered that. "Maybe I'm just stubborn. Maybe that's what the world needs more of." For a few minutes they ate in companionable silence. The storm outside softened into drizzle. Her heart slowed. He asked about her work. She asked about his favorite books. He said architecture journals. She said worn paperbacks. They disagreed about jazz, but shared the same favorite movie. When the waiter cleared the plates, Lucas leaned back. "You said you make spaces feel like they matter. Do you ever fix people's spaces?" She smiled faintly. "Only if they're willing to admit something's broken." His gaze met hers again, unflinching. "That's rarer than you think." Her phone buzzed a message from her friend. "How's it going?" Ella typed, still breathing. She set it down and noticed Lucas watching her with quiet amusement. "What? Nothing. Just wondering if you realize everyone here stopped paying attention 10 minutes ago." She blinked. They did it mostly because you stopped caring. The words landed like warmth after rain. Time blurred. When she finally stood to leave the floor, around her had dried. Her embarrassment had thinned into something gentler. Lucas rose, slipping his hands into his pockets. "Ella," he said. She turned. "For what it's worth, if everything tonight had gone perfectly, I probably wouldn't remember it." She smiled, unsure what else to say. "Then maybe chaos has its charm." Maybe, he agreed. "See you soon, only if the universe behaves." He watched her walk out into the cooling night, barefoot again, but head held high, and for the first time in a long while, he caught himself hoping the universe wouldn't behave at all. The next morning, sunlight spilled through the blinds of Ella's tiny Oakland apartment, falling across a stack of unpaid bills and a wilted plant on the kitchen counter. She sat cross-legged on the couch, a cup of instant coffee cooling beside her, scrolling through messages from her best friend Maya. "So, was he a serial killer or secretly your soulmate?" Ella groaned, typing back, "Neither. Just weirdly kind. The night was chaos, but he didn't run." "You're welcome," Maya replied instantly. "That's what blind dates are for, proof you're still alive." Ella laughed softly, though her stomach tightened. The laughter felt like a fragile thing lately, something she had to protect. Her rent was due, 2 clients hadn't paid, and her savings were almost gone. But for a few hours last night, sitting barefoot in a 5-star restaurant with a man who'd actually listened to her, she'd felt something close to possibility. She shook her head, standing to get ready for the day. Her next project meeting was in downtown San Francisco, a presentation for a boutique hotel design, her one remaining contract. She tied her hair up, grabbed her worn leather bag, and promised herself that chaos was behind her now. It wasn't. Across the bay on the top floor of the Davenport Holdings Tower, Lucas adjusted his tie in the reflection of a glass wall. His assistant, Oliver, stood by the door holding a sleek black folder. "The board meeting starts in 10, Oliver said. "Your mother's already in the conference room." "Of course she is," Lucas muttered. He ran a hand through his hair, then took the folder. Inside was a briefing for the firm's next major acquisition, a multi-million-dollar development near Napa Valley. But his mind drifted back to a woman, sitting barefoot across a table, sipping water, and talking about making small spaces matter. He'd introduced himself as Luke Daniels, something he'd done often on dating apps. A fake name offered privacy, a way to meet people who didn't treat him like a headline. But last night had felt different. There'd been no pretense, no rehearsed charm, just a drenched, exhausted woman who smiled anyway. When he stepped into the conference room, Grace Davenport, elegant in navy silk, was already seated at the head of the table. The board members turned expectantly. Grace's voice carried its usual command. "Lucas, we'll need your confirmation on the Vail merger. Serena's father wants a public announcement within the month." Lucas froze. The merger or the marriage? Her gaze sharpened. Both would benefit the company. He took a breath, steady. "That's not happening." Murmurs rippled through the table. Grace sighed softly. "You've been unpredictable lately. This company needs stability, not rebellion. People notice when the heir stops following tradition." "I'm not the heir," he replied quietly. "I'm just trying to run it right." Grace's smile was polite and cold. "Then prove it. Attend the launch tomorrow at the Riverside Hotel. Show the investors you're still the Davenport they trust." Lucas nodded once, so his thoughts had already shifted. The Riverside Hotel. That was the same boutique project he'd seen on the upcoming partnerships list, the one designed by Ella Moreno Interiors. By noon, Ella stood in the hotel's half-finished lobby, nervously aligning fabric samples and floor plans on a presentation table. The place smelled of sawdust and new beginnings. Her colleague Andy nudged her. "You look less like you fought a coffee machine today." "That's progress." "Thanks," she muttered, adjusting her blazer. "Let's just hope the investors like what they see." She had no idea one of them already had. The doors opened and a group of executives entered. Among them was Grace Davenport, poised immaculate with eyes like a winter storm, and walking a step behind her, dressed in the same quiet authority he'd worn last night, was Luke. Her heart stumbled. For a moment she couldn't move. He met her gaze, recognition flashing like a secret between them. But there was no smirk, no warmth. Only professionalism, a mask that fit him too easily. "Miss Moreno," said the project manager, gesturing to her. "Would you please begin?" Ella swallowed hard, nodding. Of course. Her voice found its rhythm as she spoke about sustainable materials, community-driven aesthetics, and the importance of warmth over luxury, but her mind flickered with confusion. Lucas was watching her intently, every word measured. When she finished, polite applause filled the space. Grace gave a thin smile. It's charming, she said, though perhaps too sentimental for our clientele. Ella forced a nod. Understood. But before she could gather her notes, Lucas spoke. I disagree. Sentiment is what keeps people coming back. It's what turns a hotel into a story. The room went silent. Grace's eyes narrowed. Noted, she said crisply. After the meeting, Ella packed up quickly, wanting to escape. But a voice stopped her near the elevator. Ella. She turned. Lucas stood there, hands in his pockets, eyes softer now. So? Luke Daniels, huh? She said. He sighed. I wanted a night without my last name attached. I guess I should thank you for not mentioning your empire between appetizers. He smiled faintly. You handled today better than most executives I know. She crossed her arms. That's sweet, but it doesn't fix the fact that your mother hates my design. Don't take it personally. She hates everything she didn't invent. Ella laughed a small, surprised sound. You really don't talk like a millionaire. Good, he said. I'm tired of sounding like one. A pause hung between them, gentle but charged. You did great today, he added, even after the chaos. Especially after the chaos. The elevator doors slid open, and she stepped inside. Next time, she said with a teasing glint, try using your real name. He grinned. Only if you promise not to spill coffee. The doors closed, but the smile lingered long after she was gone. That night in his penthouse overlooking the bay, Lucas stood by the window phone in hand. A notification buzzed an article from a gossip blog, Mystery Girl, from viral blind date, turns out to be Davenport's new designer. He exhaled sharply. The story was spreading. Across town, Ella's phone buzzed too. Same headline, same photo, her barefoot at the Ivy Pearl, face flushed but defiant. She closed her eyes, heart sinking. Her career had just been handed its most dangerous kind of fame, and somewhere in the dark, two people who'd shared one chaotic evening now found themselves tangled in a story neither had meant to start. The office buzzed with low conversation when Ella walked in the next morning, clutching a paper cup of coffee like armor. Every whisper seemed to stop the moment she passed. She didn't have to look at her phone to know why. The headline had already reached every corner of the internet. Chaos Girl designs for the Davenport Empire. Her inbox was flooded with questions she couldn't answer. Some were from clients, most were from people she'd never met, each with a different version of the same cruel curiosity. She reached her desk, dropped her bag, and stared at the screen. Her reflection in the dark monitor looked tired but composed. She could handle this. She'd handled worse. Andy appeared beside her with 2 muffins and an apologetic smile. You're trending again, I noticed, she muttered. He set one of the muffins on her desk. They're saying you're dating him. Ella looked up sharply. I had one dinner with him, well, technically coffee and half a bucket of rain. Andy shrugged. Doesn't matter. They're calling it a billionaire romance. She groaned softly. Great. The internet's favorite fairy tale. Her phone buzzed again. A message from an unknown number. Ignore the noise. Keep your head up. She stared at it for a long time before locking the screen and tossing the phone into her drawer. At Davenport Holdings, the morning meeting dragged on, all polite smiles and hidden judgment. Lucas sat at the head of the long glass table, flipping through quarterly reports while snippets of conversation floated around him. The viral designer, risky for the brand. Public sympathy might work in our favor. His judgment slipping since the breakup with Serena. He closed the folder and said evenly, if anyone has comments about my personal life, now's the time. After this meeting, I expect silence. No one spoke. Grace, sitting across from him, watched him with that familiar mix of pride and disapproval. Lucas, perception is power. You of all people should know that. Perception isn't truth, he replied. Perhaps, but it builds empires. He stood pushing the chair back quietly. Then maybe it's time this empire remembered its people, not just its profits. Grace's lips pressed together, but she didn't stop him when he left. By noon, Ella had been called into the project review. The boardroom smelled of coffee and polished glass. Every seat was filled with sharp suits and sharper opinions. She placed her samples on the table, hands steady, even as her pulse raced. One of the senior executives, Mr. Hensley, gray-haired, polite in the way knives are leaned forward. "Miss Moreno, I must say your designs are quite sentimental." She smiled faintly. "Thank you." "It wasn't a compliment," he said smoothly. "We cater to clients who expect prestige, not poetry." A few chuckles rippled through the room. Ella kept her eyes on the blueprint. "Then maybe you've forgotten that prestige fades, but comfort stays." Someone coughed into their hand to hide a laugh. Hensley's smile tightened. Before he could respond, the glass door opened and Lucas stepped in. The air shifted immediately. He nodded to the board members, then turned to Ella. "I believe Miss Moreno's vision aligns perfectly with the new community-driven direction we discussed last quarter." "Community-driven," Hensley repeated skeptically. Lucas glanced at him. "Unless you think billion-dollar real estate can survive without real people?" No one dared argue. He gestured for Ella to continue. "Please go on." She swallowed, surprised but grateful. "Thank you." Her voice steadied as she spoke. She described open spaces that invited connection materials sourced from local artisans, design choices meant to tell a story rather than sell one. By the time she finished, even the boardroom's hum of skepticism had quieted. Lucas nodded slightly. "Well done." The meeting ended soon after, but as Ella gathered her things, she could feel the looks, curious, amused, some even admiring. Outside in the corridor, a few junior staffers whispered, "Guess the Chaos Girl's got the boss wrapped around her finger. She's braver than I'd be showing her face after all that." Ella didn't stop walking. She couldn't afford to. An hour later, she stood alone on the rooftop terrace, wind tugging at her hair. The city stretched out below, glass concrete, and 1,000 small stories no one would ever read. She closed her eyes, willing herself not to cry. "You handled them better than I expected," came a voice behind her. She turned. Lucas stood a few steps away, hands in his pockets, tie loosened. "You mean the executives or the internet?" "Both," he said with a hint of a smile. She laughed once, dry and tired. "It's a skill, years of practice being underestimated." He walked closer, stopping beside her. "You didn't deserve what happened online. I showed up looking like I'd fought a hurricane. The world just had fun with it." "You showed up," he corrected. "That's more than most people do." For a moment neither spoke. The wind picked up, carrying the faint sound of traffic below. "Why defend me in there?" she asked quietly. "You didn't have to." "Because you're right," he said simply. "Places and people should matter." She searched his face, half expecting to find pity, but there was only calm, steady certainty. "Do you always risk your reputation for strangers?" "Only the ones who remind me who I am," he said. The honesty in his tone caught her off guard. Her throat tightened. "You really don't sound like the man the headlines describe." "I hope not." He smiled faintly. "The man in the headlines is boring." A soft laugh escaped her before she could stop it. "Careful. People might think you have feelings." "I'll survive the rumor," he said. When she left the terrace, the ache in her chest felt lighter, as if someone had quietly set down a burden she hadn't realized she was carrying. That evening, Ella sat on her couch laptop, opened 6 emails, blinking at the corner of the screen. She ignored them all. Instead, she opened a new message window and began to type. To Lucas Davenport. Subject: "Thank you. I don't know if standing up for me today was part of some corporate strategy or just human decency, but it mattered. I'm not used to being defended, especially by people who could lose something doing it. So, thank you." She hovered over the send button, then closed the laptop instead. Some words she thought were better saved for when the world stopped watching. Outside, the city lights shimmered against the bay, and somewhere across the skyline a man stared out from his own window, wondering why one voice in the middle of all the noise suddenly felt like the only one worth hearing. The rain had finally stopped by the time Ella left the office, though the street still gleamed with its memory. She walked quickly, hoping the cool air would clear her head. It didn't. Everywhere she looked, on her phone and store windows, even in the nervous glances of strangers, she felt the shadow of that viral story following her. Chaos Girl, Coffee Girl, Davenport's new muse. She stopped at a corner cafe, one of those tucked-away places with flickering Edison bulbs and mismatched chairs. She ordered a cappuccino, found a seat by the window, and tried to breathe. The aroma of roasted beans and cinnamon filled the air, wrapping around her like something familiar. She opened her sketchbook, wanting to focus on anything but him, but she didn't need to imagine him. "Mind if I join you?" She looked up sharply. Lucas stood there holding 2 paper cups and that same unreadable calm in his eyes. He was dressed more casually than she'd ever seen, dark sweater, no tie sleeves rolled. It made him look less like a CEO and more like someone real. "I should have guessed you'd track me down," she said dryly. "I didn't," he replied, sliding into the chair across from her. "You just happen to like my favorite cafe." She raised an eyebrow. "You have a favorite cafe? I thought billionaires were fueled by mergers and imported tea." He smirked. "Sometimes even billionaires need caffeine and perspective." Ella leaned back, studying him. "So, what brings you here, my perspective?" "I came to apologize." "For what?" "Being polite in public, defending me in a meeting, for all of it," he said, his tone soft but steady. "You didn't ask for attention yet. Somehow you ended up carrying it for both of us." She sighed, glancing out the window. "The world loves a spectacle. I just happened to be the unlucky headline this week." "You handled it better than most executives I know," he said. "And for what it's worth, I've been through my share of headlines too. They don't last. People move on. Except when they don't." He didn't argue. Instead, he pushed one of the paper cups toward her. "Almond milk cappuccino, no sugar." She blinked. "You remembered." "I remember small things," he said quietly. She took the cup, fingers brushing his for a moment longer than necessary. It shouldn't have meant anything, but somehow it did. The cafe noise faded into something softer. "So Lucas," he corrected gently. "Right, Lucas." She gave a mock salute. "Still adjusting." "Fair," he said, smiling. "It's a lot to take in. The fake name, the real mess, the headlines." "I've had worse," she said, "but not with this much media coverage." Before he could respond, her phone buzzed on the table. Another notification from an online article is the chaos girl dating the Davenport heir, accompanied by a blurry picture of her from the previous night. Her stomach dropped. "Unbelievable," she muttered, turning the screen toward him. "They must have a radar for humiliation." Lucas frowned. "Where did they even get that? The office terrace, maybe? Someone must have snapped a photo." He looked genuinely angry, the muscle in his jaw tightening. "You shouldn't have to deal with this. I work for your company," she said, trying to sound calm. "I knew the risk when I stayed." "No," he said firmly. "You didn't, and I won't let them turn you into a joke." The conviction in his voice startled her. "What exactly are you planning to do?" "Buy the internet." His mouth curved slightly. Tempting, but no. "I'll handle it quietly, Lucas," she said. Her tone gentler now. "I don't need you to fix this. I just need to survive it." He met her gaze. "Maybe you deserve more than surviving." Something in her chest fluttered at that dangerous hopeful. She took a sip of her coffee, hiding her face behind the steam. They sat in silence for a while, watching the rain start up again, lighter this time. A street musician played outside, soft guitar notes weaving through the sound of water. "Do you ever wish you could just disappear?" she asked suddenly. "All the time," he said without hesitation. "But disappearing isn't freedom. It's just another cage." She nodded slowly. "You really are full of inconvenient wisdom, aren't you?" "I try." Her phone buzzed again, louder this time. She sighed and ignored it. "If I get one more alert about being the chaos girl, I'm moving to another country." He chuckled softly. "I could recommend a few." "I bet you could," she said, smiling, despite herself. A few minutes later, a young woman at the next table glanced at her, then at Lucas, her eyes widening in recognition. She whispered something to her friend, who lifted a phone. Ella noticed the movement just as the camera clicked. "Great," she whispered. "Round 2. Lucas stood, immediately pulling a few bills from his wallet and dropping them on the table. "Come on." "Where?" "Out the back door," he said, already moving. They slipped through the narrow hallway, past the kitchen, and exited into a quiet alleyway smelling faintly of rain and roasted beans. The sudden cool air hit her like relief. He turned to her. "Are you okay?" She nodded, breathless, but laughing now. "I can't believe we just escaped a cafe like fugitives." "Welcome to my world," he said, smiling for real this time. They walked to the end of the alley, the city opening before them. The rain had stopped again, leaving the streets glistening under the streetlights. "Do you regret last night?" he asked suddenly. She blinked. "What?" "The dinner. The chaos. Meeting me." She thought about it for a moment, then shook her head. "No, I regret the shoes, not the moment." His eyes softened. "That's good to hear." They stood there, silent, stretching comfortably between them. Then, as if remembering himself, he said, "I should probably get you a car. The press will spin this into something else by morning." "Let them," she said quietly. "If chaos brought me here, maybe it's not all bad." He looked at her like he wanted to say something more, but didn't. Instead, he opened the car door for her. As she climbed in, she glanced up. "You know, for someone who hates the spotlight, you're terrible at avoiding it." He smiled. "Maybe I finally found something worth being seen for." The door closed, leaving her heart pounding. Through the tinted glass, she watched him walk away, his figure dissolving into the glow of the city. By the time she got home, her phone was exploding again, this time with a different headline: CEO Lucas Davenport and the Chaos Girl Coffee Confessions in Chemistry. Ella sank onto her couch, staring at the screen. Chaos, it seemed, wasn't done with her yet. The next morning, Ella woke to the sound of her phone vibrating across the nightstand. She groaned, reaching for it, expecting another headline or gossip alert. Instead, the screen flashed with an email notification from Blackwell PR agency. Her stomach twisted. The subject line read Media Statement, Davenport Holdings Incident Response Draft. She sat up, heart pounding, and opened it. The email contained a proposed statement from the Davenport Public Relations team. Miss Ella Moreno is not in any personal or professional relationship with Mr. Davenport. The rumors circulating are false and harmful. Davenport Holdings remains committed to professionalism and integrity. Her hands trembled. There was no apology, no clarification, just distance. Moments later, her phone buzzed again. "Maya." "Tell me you've seen it," Maya said before Ella could speak. "I have. Are they seriously throwing you under the bus like that? It basically screams, she's lying. He's innocent." Ella swallowed. "It's not signed by Lucas. It's just PR. Maybe he doesn't even know." "Please," Maya said flatly. "Billionaires know everything before breakfast." "Don't defend him, Elle. You've worked too hard to let them make you small." Ella closed her eyes. "I'm not defending him. I need to think. Well, think fast, because the internet already has." After hanging up, Ella stared out the window. The morning light was pale, uncertain, like it wasn't sure whether to commit to shining or hide behind clouds. That was exactly how she felt. Across the bay, Lucas stood in his office, staring at the same statement on his screen. His assistant, Oliver, stood silently nearby. "Who approved this?" Lucas asked, voice low but dangerous. "Grace," Oliver replied carefully. "She said it was best to act quickly." Lucas's jaw clenched. "Without talking to me." "She thought the company needed distance, sir." "From what?" "The truth." Oliver hesitated. "The press is relentless and investors are nervous. Mrs. Davenport believes the statement will contain the damage." Lucas exhaled through his nose, sharp and controlled. Damage control by humiliation. Classic. He closed the laptop and grabbed his coat. "I'll handle it." "Sir, your mother asked to see you before the 10 a.m. board meeting. Tell her I'm unavailable. She said it wasn't a request." Lucas paused by the door, eyes narrowing slightly. "Then she can wait." Grace Davenport was waiting, of course. When Lucas walked into the boardroom, she was seated at the head of the table, flanked by 3 senior partners and a legal advisor. "You made the statement public," he said, not even bothering to sit. "It was necessary," she replied smoothly. "You've been reckless, Lucas. We can't afford scandal." "She's not a scandal. She's a liability," Grace snapped. "You may find her charming, but this company runs on perception. The world doesn't reward sentimentality." Lucas's voice stayed calm, though his words cut like glass. "No, mother. The world just punishes honesty." Grace's jaw tightened. "This girl has already caused enough disruption. The story will fade if you let it. I won't let you destroy her reputation to protect mine." Grace's expression softened almost imperceptibly. "Lucas, someday you'll understand that love and leadership rarely coexist." He gave a bitter smile. "Then I'll choose wrong proudly." Without another word, he turned and walked out. By mid-afternoon, Ella was back at the Riverside Hotel site, her team finalizing lighting layouts. The construction dust caught the sunlight like gold. It should have felt inspiring, but all she saw was the empty space between who she was and who the world thought she'd become. Ella Andy's voice broke through her thoughts. "You've got company." She turned and froze. Lucas was standing by the entrance, sleeves rolled, no entourage, no suit jacket. Just him. "What are you doing here?" she asked quietly. "Fixing something," he said, walking closer. "Your PR team already did that." He stopped a few feet away, his eyes steady on hers. "That wasn't me." "Then who was it, your ghostwriter, Grace?" he said simply. "And it won't stand. Lucas, you can't just undo a corporate statement because you feel guilty." "This isn't guilt," he said. "It's accountability." She folded her arms, forcing composure. "I've survived worse than a bad headline." "I know you have," he said softly. "That's why I'm here, because you deserve more than surviving." The words landed heavy between them, fragile and true. "Do you know what it's like?" she asked quietly. "To wake up and see your face turned into a joke? To have people call you a social climber, a fraud, a charity case?" His voice lowered. "Yes." She stared at him, uncertain whether to believe it. "Then why didn't you stop it?" "I thought I could control it," he admitted. "I was wrong." For a long moment neither spoke. The sound of drilling filled the silence. Finally she said, "You can't fix this, Lucas. Not with money, not with power." He took a breath. "Maybe not, but I can make it right. How, you'll see." That evening, Ella sat on her couch with a blanket wrapped around her shoulders, scrolling aimlessly through comments until her phone buzzed with a notification. Live Davenport Holdings Press Conference CEO Lucas Davenport speaks on viral controversy. Her heart stopped. The video began with Lucas standing at a podium, microphones flashing under white lights. The room buzzed with reporters. "I want to address the statement released earlier," began his tone calm but unflinching. "It was issued without my approval. The woman you've seen in those photos is not a PR distraction, and she's not a story to be managed. She's someone who reminded me that authenticity is more powerful than polish." Murmurs rippled through the press crowd. He continued, "If you're looking for scandal, you won't find it here. You'll find a designer who showed up even when the world told her she shouldn't. And if that's chaos, maybe we could all use a little more of it." The room erupted in questions, flashes, chaos of a different kind. But Lucas didn't flinch. He finished with one simple line. "Her name is Ella Moreno, and I stand with her." The clip ended. Ella sat frozen, her pulse pounding. The world had just shifted again. Maya called seconds later. "Did he just?" "He did," Ella whispered. "Girl, you realize he basically went nuclear on his own PR team." Ella stared at the screen, still stunned. He didn't have to do that. Maybe he wanted to. Outside, the city hummed with new noise, fresh headlines, brighter ones this time. For the first time in days, Ella didn't feel like the story was happening to her. She felt like maybe, just maybe, she'd begun to reclaim it. And somewhere across town, in a penthouse office glowing with city lights, Lucas watched the same clip replay on his phone, a faint smile tugging at his lips. For once, chaos had done something right. The morning after the press conference, the city felt strangely quiet, as if even the noise had paused to see what would happen next. Ella woke to sunlight streaming through the blinds and a phone full of messages. Most were from journalists wanting a quote. Others were from friends, some shocked, some proud, all asking the same question. Did he really mean it? She didn't know how to answer. Maya's text was the last one she read. "The man basically declared war on his own PR team for you. If that's not a confession, I don't know what is." Ella smiled faintly, setting the phone down. She didn't want to believe in fairy tales, not again, but something about yesterday had felt undeniably real. She spent the morning at the design studio trying to bury herself in fabric samples and layout revisions, but the world wouldn't let her hide. 2 interns whispered by the door, one of them glancing her way before whispering, "That's her, the one he defended." Ella pretended not to hear. She'd learned that pretending was a survival skill. At noon, she took her lunch outside, sitting on the smuttle terrace overlooking the courtyard. The air smelled faintly of jasmine and city dust. She was halfway through a sandwich when a shadow fell across the table. "Mind if I sit, Lucas?" Again. He wore no tie, just a white shirt with the sleeves rolled, the kind of casual that looked accidental but wasn't. "I'm starting to think you have a GPS that only tracks my location," she said, though her voice lacked the bite she intended. "Only when you ignore my calls," he said simply, sitting down. "I didn't ignore them, I just didn't have an answer." "To what? To whatever this is." She gestured between them. "You me the headlines." He studied her for a long moment. "What if I said it doesn't have to be anything complicated? I'd say you've never been a woman in the middle of a public circus." He leaned back, eyes still on her. "You think I don't care what people say? I think you're used to having control," she said. "I'm not." He was quiet for a moment before saying softly, "You're wrong. I've spent my entire life being controlled by image, by legacy, by expectations. The only thing I've ever wanted control over is my own choice." "And what's that choice?" she asked. He looked at her steady and unguarded. "You." Her breath caught. "Lucas, don't." "I'm not making promises," he interrupted. "I just don't want to pretend that what happened between us is something the press invented." The words were careful, deliberate, but behind them was something raw. She exhaled slowly, her voice barely above a whisper. "You're impossible, you know that I've been told," he said, smiling faintly. Before she could respond, her phone buzzed again, an unknown number. She almost ignored it, but something about the subject line made her pause. "Confidential Naomi Grace statement draft." Her heart sank. Naomi Grace, the company's PR head, and the woman rumored to have been both Lucas's former fiancée and his mother's favorite. She opened the message. Attached was a draft press release that hadn't yet gone live. "We regret to inform you that designer Ella Moreno's contract is under review. Following recent media disruptions, Davenport Holdings remains committed to professionalism and public trust." Her pulse hammered in her ears. She turned the screen toward Lucas. "Did you know about this?" He took the phone, reading the words with a tightening jaw. "No, but I can guess who wrote it." "Your mother," he nodded once. "And Naomi." Ella stood abruptly. "Then I'm finished here. I won't let them use me as their distraction anymore." He rose too, his voice low. "Ella," she said firmly, "you stood up for me once, and I appreciate that. But this is my career, my name. I need to fight for it my way." He didn't stop her when she walked away. He only watched the wind tugging at his sleeves, his expression unreadable. By late afternoon, Ella was at the Davenport office waiting outside the PR division. Her stomach twisted as she watched Naomi Grace stride down the hallway, polished, confident red heels clicking with the precision of someone who'd never lost control in her life. "Miss Moreno," Naomi said coolly. "To what do we owe this surprise? I came to thank you," Ella said evenly. "For drafting a statement without me." "That takes real initiative." Naomi smiled faintly. "Damage control isn't a democracy." "I'm not damage," Ella said, "and neither is honesty." Naomi's eyes flicked up sharp and assessing. "You really think you can walk into this world and change how it works?" "No," Ella replied, "but I can change how I work in it." Naomi's expression didn't falter, but something flickered there, a tiny fracture. "You're playing a dangerous game." "Then I guess I learned from the best," Ella said, turning away. She didn't wait for an answer. She walked straight to the executive elevator and pressed the button for the 39th floor. Lucas was in his office when she arrived, leaning over a stack of papers. He looked up instantly. "You shouldn't have gone to Naomi." "I needed to," she said. "I needed her to see I'm not afraid." He studied her admiration flickering in his gaze. "You keep surprising me. I'm not here to surprise you. I'm here to make something clear." He stepped closer. "I'm listening." She took a breath. "If this partnership, professional or otherwise, is going to survive, it can't be because you're protecting me. It has to be because you respect me." His voice softened. "Ella, I do." "Then prove it," she said. "Let me finish this project my way. No safety nets, no favors." He hesitated, then nodded. "You have my word." "Good," she said, though her chest ached with something she couldn't name. She turned to leave, but his voice stopped her. "Ella." She looked back. "You're not alone in this, even if it feels that way." Her lips curved into a small, tired smile. "I know." As she walked out, the city lights were just starting to glow against the dusk. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, scandal, redemption, maybe both, but for the first time the story felt like hers again. and far above, behind the glass walls of his office, Lucas watched her disappear into the evening, realizing that for the first time in years, he wasn't thinking about the company's legacy or his mother's expectations. He was thinking about her courage and how it terrified and inspired him all at once. The storm rolled in without warning, that night thunder curling over the San Francisco skyline as if the city itself had something to say. Ella sat on the floor of her apartment surrounded by sketches, fabric swatches, and half-drunk cups of tea. Her presentation for the final pitch was tomorrow the one that would decide whether the Riverside Hotel project lived or died. She should have felt terrified. Instead, she felt focused. The noise of the outside world had faded. No headlines, no pity, no speculation. Just the hum of rain against glass and the steady rhythm of her pencil as she drew. Around midnight, her phone buzzed. A text from Lucas. "You still awake?" She hesitated, then typed back, "Barely. Big day tomorrow." "I know. You've got this." She smiled despite herself. "Shouldn't you be sleeping too?" "I will. After I know you stopped overworking." She rolled her eyes and sent a photo of her messy workspace. Too late for that. The 3 dots blinked. Then his reply appeared. "That's the chaos I trust." She stared at the screen for a long moment before typing, "Thank you." Then she set the phone down and exhaled a quiet kind of peace settling in. Morning came gray and still. Ella woke early, pulled on her best navy dress, the one she'd saved for a day she wanted to feel unstoppable, and took the train into the city. Her reflection in the window looked calm, but her pulse betrayed her. At the Davenport Tower, the atmosphere was tense. Everyone knew this presentation would determine whether Lucas's gamble, the shift toward human-centered design, would survive the board's scrutiny. When she stepped off the elevator, heads turned, conversations hushed. Naomi stood by the glass wall of the boardroom, poised as always, tablet in hand. "You're cutting it close, Miss Moreno." "Just in time," Ella said, offering a polite smile. Naomi tilted her head, assessing. "Let's hope your ideas are as bold as your timing." Before Ella could respond, Lucas entered. His presence changed the temperature of the room. The tension eased, if only slightly. He nodded at her professional measured, but the faint flicker of warmth in his eyes didn't go unnoticed. "Let's begin," he said. Ella stepped to the front of the room, her heart thudding. The projection behind her showed her first slide images of empty spaces transformed into stories of belonging. She began, her voice steady. "When we think about luxury, we think about marble and chandeliers. But true luxury is the feeling of being seen. This design isn't just about aesthetics, it's about connection." As she spoke, something shifted in the room. The board members, initially skeptical, leaned forward. She walked them through the concept community art collaborations, adaptive layouts for families and travelers, partnerships with local artisans to give the hotel its soul. When she finished, there was silence. Then slowly, one of the older members spoke. "It's unorthodox," he said, "but it feels alive." Another nodded. "There's a story here, a reason for people to return." Naomi's voice broke the calm. "With respect, this approach sacrifices brand uniformity. It's too sentimental." Ella met her gaze. "Uniformity doesn't build loyalty. Emotion does." Naomi's smile didn't reach her eyes. "That's quite the slogan. Perhaps you should work in advertising." Lucas's voice cut in. "She's right." The room turned toward him. "This company has spent years building monuments," he said. "It's time we build meaning." Grace Davenport, who had been silent until now, finally spoke. "Meaning doesn't pay shareholders." Lucas looked at her calmly. "Neither does fear." Grace studied him, her expression unreadable. "You're staking your reputation on this design, yes," he said. "And so is she." The air grew heavy. For a moment, Ella thought Grace might end it there, dismiss them both, but instead she leaned back, considering. "Then let the numbers prove you right." "Proceed." Ella exhaled. Her knees felt weak, but she didn't let it show. After the meeting, the corridor outside was quiet except for the soft hum of city sounds below. Lucas walked beside her, hands in his pockets. "You were extraordinary," he said simply. She smiled. "So were you." "That was risky. Everything worth doing is," he said. She looked up at him. "You know your mother's not done with this, right?" "I know," he said, smiling faintly. "But for once, I don't care." Before she could reply, Naomi appeared behind them, heels clicking. A word Miss Moreno. Ella turned. Of course. Lucas started to object, but she shook her head. It's fine. Naomi waited until he was gone before speaking. You did well in there, better than I expected. Is that a compliment? Consider it a warning, Naomi said coolly. You've made powerful allies and enemies. Choose wisely. Ella met her gaze. I'm not here to play games. Naomi's smile was almost kind. Everyone says that, until the game starts playing them. Then she turned and walked away, leaving behind the faint scent of rose and smoke. That evening, Ella stood on the rooftop of her apartment building, watching the city lights flicker to life. The air smelled like rain and new beginnings. Her phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. Riverside presentation approved for final phase. Congratulations, board secretary. Her chest tightened. It was happening. She'd won. A second message followed this one from Lucas. You did it. Dinner to celebrate. She smiled, typing back. Only if it's somewhere I don't need heels. Deal. Hours later, they sat on the patio of a small Mediterranean bistro, tucked between narrow streets, candles flickering between them. For the first time, neither of them looked like they were carrying the weight of a company. Lucas lifted his glass. To chaos. Ella laughed. To courage, she countered. They clinked glasses. Between laughter and quiet conversation, the tension that had hovered between them for weeks began to soften into something deeper. When the night ended, he walked her home. Outside her apartment, he hesitated, his voice low. You know this will only get harder. I know, she said softly, but it's worth it. He smiled, then, tired, honest, and full of something that felt dangerously close to love. And for the first time in months, the city didn't feel so loud. It felt alive. It felt like possibility. The news broke before sunrise. Ella's phone buzzed nonstop on her nightstand, vibrating with the urgency of a world on fire. She blinked awake, disoriented, and reached for it. The first headline froze her blood. Anonymous leak: Davenport heir accused of nepotism, designer lover promoted over senior staff. Her heart slammed against her ribs. The article was brutal, complete with photos from last night's dinner. Her laughing, him smiling, a candle between them like proof of sin. The story painted her as an opportunist, a manipulator who used romance to climb the corporate ladder. Maya called before she could finish reading. Elle, don't open social media. Just don't. I already did, she whispered. They're tearing you apart. Has Lucas said anything I don't know? Ella said, sitting up, clutching the phone as if it could anchor her. He would never, I know, Maya said quickly. But perception doesn't care about truth. Stay offline. Let him handle it. After hanging up, Ella stood pacing the small apartment. Every window reflected her own pale, frightened face. She'd fought so hard to earn her place, to prove she wasn't defined by chaos, and now the world had dragged her right back into it. At Davenport Holdings, the storm was worse. The boardroom buzzed with accusation. Grace sat at the head of the table, immaculate and still, while Lucas faced a wall of glares and printed screenshots. You've compromised this company, one executive snapped. Your relationship, if that's what we're calling it, has created a PR nightmare. Lucas kept his tone even. My personal life isn't your jurisdiction. It becomes our jurisdiction when it threatens investor trust, Grace said sharply. You put sentiment above strategy. Lucas's jaw tightened. No, I put integrity above hypocrisy. A few murmurs rippled through the room. Grace leaned forward. You think this is noble, defending her? That woman's name is trending for all the wrong reasons. Sponsors are threatening to pull out of the Riverside project. He met her gaze unflinching. Then I'll fund it myself. The room went silent. Grace's voice lowered, dangerous. You're willing to risk your entire inheritance for a woman you barely know. I know enough, he said. Enough to see how wrong this is. Grace's expression softened just for a moment, the faintest glimmer of something maternal. You're making a mistake, Lucas. Maybe, he said, but it's mine to make. He stood gathering the leaked documents from the table and walked out. By the time Ella reached her office, the world already had opinions. Her co-workers fell silent as she walked in. Some looked sympathetic, others avoided eye contact entirely. Andy rushed to meet her. Ella, you should go home. HR's handling it. Handling what she demanded. Damage control, he said carefully. They're reviewing your contract. My contract? Her voice cracked. I didn't leak anything. I didn't do anything wrong. I know, Andy said, but this is about optics. The board thinks keeping you here looks bad. She laughed, but it came out bitter. Right. The same board that loved my work 2 days ago. The door to the conference room opened and Naomi stepped out, tablet in hand. Her expression was unreadable. Miss Moreno, she said a word. Ella followed her inside. The room was empty now, the city light slanting through the blinds. Naomi set the tablet down. This leak wasn't an accident. Obviously, Ella said. But why me? Because you were visible? Naomi replied. Invisibility makes enemies. Ella folded her arms. Are you telling me you're not one of them? Naomi's lips twitched. Believe it or not, I respect you. You've done what most people here wouldn't dare stand up to Lucas and to me. So, what's this, a pep talk before you sign my termination papers? An offer, Naomi said calmly. Walk away now, quietly. Let the chaos fade. You'll find other work and the world will move on. Stay and they'll destroy you. Ella stared at her. And what happens to you if I stay? Naomi smiled thinly. Let's just say the board doesn't like distractions. Ella's pulse pounded in her ears. You leaked it. Naomi didn't deny it. I protected the company. You protected yourself. For a moment, Naomi's mask slipped and something raw showed through. We all protect ourselves, Miss Moreno. That's the only way to survive in this world. Ella took a breath, steadying her voice. Then maybe it's time someone changed the rules. She turned and walked out before Naomi could answer. Hours later, Lucas found her on the waterfront, sitting alone on a bench facing the bay. The wind pulled at her hair, the waves slapping rhythmically against the rocks. You shouldn't be out here, he said softly. I needed air. He sat beside her close enough for warmth but not touch. They're trying to force you out. I know. You don't deserve this. She laughed without humor. Maybe not, but I'm used to it. People see what they want to see. Then let me fix it, he said. She turned to him. You can't fix perception with power, Lucas. That's what they don't understand. The only thing that changes the story is truth. Then tell it, he said, on your terms. She looked out over the water, her voice barely audible. If I do that, there's no going back. He met her gaze, eyes steady. Maybe you're not supposed to. The silence stretched between them, full of wind and what-ifs. Finally, she said, I'm scared. So am I, he admitted. But fear means you still have something worth losing. She swallowed, blinking back tears. You really believe in me, don't you? I believe in what you make me remember, he said, that people still matter. The sky cracked open with thunder again, the storm returning. Ella stood, her coat whipping around her. Then tomorrow, she said, voice trembling but resolute. We tell the truth. The next morning, a single notification hit every major platform. Statement from Ella Moreno. I won't apologize for showing up. It wasn't long, just a paragraph, but it was honest, raw, and impossible to ignore. She spoke of working-class beginnings of fighting for a voice in a room that never expected her to belong, of refusing to be reduced to a headline. By noon, the internet's tone began to shift. Hashtags flipped from mockery to admiration. People saw not a scandal but resilience. In his office, Lucas watched it unfold, pride flickering across his face. For the first time, the chaos wasn't something to manage. It was something to believe in. And for Ella, standing in the middle of it all, it didn't feel like survival anymore. It felt like transformation. The air inside Davenport Holdings felt different the next morning, charged, uncertain, almost alive. The company that once ran on silence and intimidation was now humming with whispers of admiration. The leak that was meant to destroy Ella had done the opposite. Her statement had gone viral, not as scandal, but as inspiration. I won't apologize for showing up had become a rallying cry across social media. Employees quoted it in emails, strangers posted it on photos of their morning commutes, and young designers tagged her name beside their work. In her office, Ella sat by the window staring out at the skyline she used to see only from the outside. The noise, the pressure, the fear, they were still there, but muted now, overshadowed by something steadier clarity. A soft knock on the glass wall broke her thoughts. Lucas stood there, holding 2 cups of coffee and a small paper bag. She smiled, motioning him in. Peace offering, he said, setting one cup on her desk. Oat milk this time. I remember now. She lifted an eyebrow. You're learning. I'm trying. They sat quietly for a moment, the hum of the city seeping through the glass. How's your mother? She asked finally. Unimpressed, he said with a faint smirk. But she's already moved on to her next crisis. Ella chuckled softly. And Naomi, she submitted her resignation this morning, he said, his tone more thoughtful than triumphant. Turns out even she has limits. Ella didn't answer right away. Maybe she just needed to lose to remember she's human. He studied her. You're a lot kinder than I would have been. I'm just tired of hating people, she said. It eats too much space in your chest. He nodded slowly. You're changing this place, you know. She looked up. One press scandal at a time. No, he said. By being honest, people here forgot what that looked like. The sincerity in his voice made her heart tighten. She reached for the paper bag, pulling out a croissant. Is this bribery or breakfast? Both, he said. There's an investor meeting this afternoon, and I'd rather face it on a full stomach. She laughed, tearing the pastry in half and handing him a piece. Consider this your battle fuel. By early afternoon, the boardroom was full again, same polished table, same expensive suits, but the energy was different. The old guard sat stiff and cautious, while the younger executives watched Ella with quiet respect. Grace Davenport regal as ever presided at the head of the table, though her expression betrayed nothing. Lucas opened the meeting. Before we begin, I want to address the elephant in the room. A few murmurs fluttered through the air. The recent events haven't been easy, he continued, for this company, for our people, or for Miss Moreno. But what they've proven is that integrity isn't weakness, it's innovation, it's courage, and it's time this company learned to value both. He gestured toward Ella. Miss Moreno will be presenting the final concept for the Riverside project, now officially rebranded as the Haven Collection. The projector flickered on, filling the room with light, and sketches of open lobbies, textured walls, and warm tones. Ella stood, hands steady, voice clear. Haven isn't just a building, it's a philosophy. A promise that everyone, no matter who they are or what chaos they bring, deserves a place that feels like home. As she spoke, even Grace's stoic face softened. The presentation ended with a quiet stillness that felt almost reverent. When the applause came, it wasn't polite, it was genuine. After the meeting, Grace approached her privately. You did well, she said. Thank you, Ella replied cautiously. Grace's gaze lingered on her. You remind me of someone I used to be. Ella blinked, unsure what to say. Maybe you still are, she said gently. Grace's lips curved into something that might have been a smile. We'll see. That evening, the Riverside Hotel hosted its soft opening. The lobby gleamed under soft golden light, filled with laughter and the quiet murmur of guests. Every corner told a story, handcrafted tiles, local art books donated by nearby schools. The world that once mocked the Chaos Girl was now walking through her vision. Maya was there too, grinning ear to ear. Look at you, she whispered, nudging Ella's shoulder. The mud girl turned miracle maker. Ella laughed, shaking her head. Don't start that again. Maya raised her glass. To chaos then, to all the right kinds. Across the room, Lucas stood speaking with a small group of investors, but his eyes found hers through the crowd. When the conversation ended, he crossed the room. His tie loosened his smile, quiet. You did it, he said softly. We did it, she corrected. He tilted his head. You ever think about how strange it is, how something as messy as that night brought us here? All the time, she said, smiling. Maybe life's just one long blind date with destiny. He chuckled. That's poetic. I learned from you. He took a step closer, his voice lowering. You still think chaos follows you, maybe, she said. But I don't run from it anymore. Good, he whispered, because I'm not running either. Their hands brushed, then found each other, no grand gestures, just quiet certainty. Around them, the party continued, the soft music blending with the hum of laughter and clinking glasses. For the first time in years, Ella felt entirely present, unafraid of what came next. Weeks later, a new sign appeared on the lobby wall of the Riverside Hotel, designed by Ella Moreno and team. Beneath it, in smaller letters, a quote she had written herself. Sometimes the chaos you fear most is just your beginning. Outside, the city moved as it always had, fast, unpredictable, alive. But inside, the world felt still, as if it had finally caught up with her heartbeat. She picked up her phone and opened her camera, snapping a photo of the sign. Then for the first time, she posted it herself with a simple caption, "That chaos to courage." Her notifications exploded instantly, but this time the noise didn't scare her. It felt like a chorus of voices saying she'd made it, not perfectly, not neatly, but authentically. And somewhere across town, Lucas saw the post, smiled, and texted her 2 words, "Dinner tonight." Her reply came a minute later, "Only if there's coffee after." If this story made you believe that sometimes the messiest beginnings can lead to the most beautiful endings, leave a comment below. Would you have walked away or stayed to rebuild, like Ella did? Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories of love, resilience, and the courage to begin again. Your voice matters here, and your story might just be next.